Cool. So you sent me some writing, so we can take a look at the writing that you sent me.
Okay.
All right. How long did it take you to write these essays?
I believe for like half an hour.
Okay, so it's a little bit fast, yeah, but that's a good length. You can take about 40 minutes. You should take about 40 minutes for task 2.
Okay.
Just slow down a little bit when you write, I think, because that length is good. The second one could be a little bit longer. You probably want to aim for like between 275 and 300 so that you can develop your ideas fully. If it's just like 250, then it's probably like a little bit too short. So, but if you've got a little bit extra time, it's no problem. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, being the internet has transformed how people learn and work. Yep. Usually you can change people to a better word. You can say like individuals, or you can be more specific, like students, learners, or it could be like consumers, users, depending on the topic, the average citizen, general public, general citizenry, because people's a little bit general, so you can usually use a better word than people. Even just individuals is usually better. Or more people. More is okay, but it's a little bit informal. So you can say like increasing numbers. So you can say like increasing numbers. Or oftentimes you can use the adverb increasingly. Like people are increasingly, students are increasingly considering the option of, or like embracing maybe option of. So increasingly can be a really useful word. Increasing numbers, students considering obtaining their IDs are, and maybe instead of considering are, maybe just like now obtaining, because they're like actually doing it. Considering means like they're thinking about it. So it's okay, but maybe they're now obtaining their degrees via online learning. Yeah.
Okay.
Not take, but you can say attend lectures from the comfort of their home. Or if you just want to say lectures remotely, a little bit more academic. That's okay. Although distance learning, that's a really good paraphrase. It's great. Differs is a really good verb as well. It's great. Conventional education. Yeah. Differs from, yeah, that's okay to say differs from. You could say it also is, so you could say like it contains, like decided drawbacks. Right? So because you're going to talk about both sides, you can say has decided drawbacks. Students can gain roughly as much as they do. Yeah, from attending or being present. A real university. Yeah, so that's good. That's a clear opinion because you're saying they're as good. Yeah, so that's great. You've got a clear opinion. It's great. So keep doing that. If you don't do that, some students will like sit in the middle. They'll say like, this is good, but that's also good, or this is bad, but that's, if you just sit in the middle, then it's going to bring your task achievement down to like a 3 or a 4 or 5. So, but you do have a clear opinion. So just make sure you keep giving a clear opinion. So if you don't give a clear opinion, if you sit in the middle, then it can move your task achievement score down to 4 or 5. Take a look at the next one. This is a little bit long for an introduction. If you want, you can just shorten it to 2 sentences, like one sentence to restate the topic, like increasing numbers where students are increasing of, distance learning, stays, and then in my opinion, effects, interaction, flexibility, so if you want, you could just like simplify it to kind of like 2 simple sentences like that. And that might save you a little bit of time. Not that you need to save time. You don't need to write such a long intro. It's okay to have 3 sentences, and you can kind of like study, these are like my sample answers. You can study the structure in these. You don't have to have like a rigid structure the way you do it. So it's fine if you want to have 3 sentences. But if you just want to have 2 and keep it simple, you can do that as well. Because the problem with this essay, you can see, is this paragraph is like a little bit too short. You want to, what's really important. So for your task achievement, there's like 2 things, there's 3 things that are important. So for task achievement, there are like 3 key areas. So one of them you did already, right? So clear opinion, so that's good, so check. And then you want relevant main ideas. So the main ideas can't be like wrong. You can't be writing about the wrong topic, or writing about something totally different. So your ideas are relevant as well. So that's check. These 2 are like easy to do, right? These ones are the easy ones.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't take any trouble. The third one is harder, which is like development of your main ideas. So like how much you support them, how much you support your ideas. And that could mean like a long detailed example, good supporting ideas, etc. This one is the much harder one. And if you have like a paragraph that's very short, that means you don't have as much support here. And you can see like the first sentence is really long. There's just like a little bit of support. So this will mean that like your task achievement score will be lower, even before I read it, because this idea is not as well developed. So, but you've got extra time. So just spending a little bit more time to aim for like at least 4 or 5 sentences for each paragraph, and just make this one a little bit longer.
Okay.
Traditional learning. You can say traditional modes of learning. Online courses are. If you're talking about them in general, use plural. If you want to keep repeating people too much, so like sometimes you can just drop the subject like that. You can say like enabling greater access to higher education. You don't always have to say the subject, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is a really good idea, the access one, yeah. You can change that. Yeah, so that's very good. Those are really good main ideas. I'm going to start with the subject here. When students have confusions or questions, they can pause a video online and consider content or replay it. The more nuance you can add, so it's like you can pause the video and you can think about it, or you can replay it. So the more nuance you can add shows off your ability with vocabulary and grammar, as opposed to like if you just like overgeneralize, that's what you want to avoid doing. So like you can just show off more and more by having like more and more little bits of nuance and complexity like that. until they don't
Got it.
really understand the contents. Yep. Consider pause the video line.
Maybe key concepts.
Yeah, key concepts for the lesson. Concepts. Yep. Yeah, so key concepts. That's a good paraphrase. These lessons are available 24 hours. Which is ideal for those. This part's okay, like ideal for those who lead a fast-paced life, but you are talking about students. I think you can make that a little bit better, which you can say which enables or allows students or efficiently flexible. That can you be a little bit more just a little bit more specific, right? Like the fast-paced life thing is a little bit strange. It's also like kind of it's not the best collocation, kind of gets overused, but also it's just a little bit general or vague. If you could be like more specific, and like with students, a lot of students don't have like a fast-paced life. It's very vague. So it's better maybe if you say maybe they have like work or they have family commitments or they can study more efficiently. These things are a little bit stronger. And you're always looking for that. So at the end of your sentence, that's where you kind of like in English, at the end of the sentence is kind of where you make your strong point or you have like the really important content. So like with this one, like that's where you're trying to like, this is where you make your strongest point. Where like the key information goes. So like really focus on the end of the sentence.
Okay.
Should have really strong, specific information if you're pushing for like a really high score. That's what can separate you from just getting like, a 6, a 6.5, a 7 into like that kind of band 8 range and above.
Okay, I see.
Say platforms and programs. We use the word enable a lot. So you can change it maybe to like now encourage or permit is okay. Yeah, again, if you can say something like maybe directly or more efficiently or directly or more efficiently. In this way, they some instructions, of course. It's a little bit overgeneralized, like complete the course with less difficulty. That's not really like the aim of like a course anyway, right? So like, and let's complete the course with maybe focus more back on the original topic, like with the same degree of guidance as a student at traditional university. Because that's what you want to focus on, like the fact that they're like equal. So like maybe relate it back to the topic. Sometimes that'll happen as you write the paragraph. You start to get deep into it and it gets a little bit away from the overall topic. So like you can always relate it back towards the end of the paragraph.
Yeah. Right.
Top is a little bit informal. You can say prestigious.
Yeah. Okay.
going through the trouble is, this is like a good informal phrase. Like for speaking, it would be great. But for writing, you want to be a little more academic. It's probably okay for writing, but it's just like slightly too, without the hassle of traveling abroad. So this is good. This is like you've developed the ideas really well. The only issue is like it's a little bit on the long side, and that might cause you some problems with the second one. So usually what I recommend, you kind of have like two main ideas here.
Yeah.
You don't really need two main ideas. Usually it's better if you just have like the one main idea, like this one, and you talk about like the flexibility, right? This one's about flexibility, and even talking to your teachers can be part of the same thing, right? Like you can also, you can continue, you could just like get rid of that sentence and kind of just continue with this one. And then it's a little bit shorter. Or the other option is instead of kind of adding this like a second idea, so you could just make it like a continuation of the same idea because it's also kind of about flexibility. Or the other way is you could kind of like just instead of having a second main idea, you could have kind of an example here. You could do something really specific, like for example, in China, there are online learning rules, and then like be really specific, like made by Google or something, like maybe, or like talk about Zoom or something that allows students to do this and this, or students use, I don't know, maybe they use YouTube or something to learn. So another option would be like to just write about one main idea and include a really, really specific example. That's how you can kind of separate yourself from other students. Other students will write maybe a more general one, or they'll just repeat the same idea over and over, but they won't add anything. But you can really separate yourself if you use a specific example. So you can talk about like Zoom or like maybe Google or something, and like their online learning software, and then you can, it doesn't have to be like 100% true because obviously you can't do research on the real test. So it can be like just like try to make it like mostly true, but it could be like kind of not true. You can kind of make it up a little bit. You can always use like in China. And again, you can make it like kind of mostly true. Like there are schools where students, like in rural areas where they stay home, but they can study in university, blah, blah, blah. And you can kind of make it up, but kind of make it mostly true. And then you can use a specific example. And that'll make your writing really stand out, and then you won't have like this thing where you have such a long paragraph. But it's okay because you do develop both ideas fully, so that's good. But then maybe it led to this paragraph being shorter. We don't really say this phrase as opposed to the advantages. You can just say like however, the main disadvantage or drawback or downside. Or you can say something fancier like a concession I would make to distance learning. Main disadvantage of students may find it hard. This is really good. So like may find it. This part here, the may, is really straight because a lot of students will just say something like they will find it. That's like an overgeneralization. So you don't overgeneralize. So that's great. Keep doing this. And you can show off the fact that you don't overgeneralize by using modal verbs in your grammar to enhance communication skills. Group assignments, maybe like social interactions better, because when it's online, you could technically get group assignments online, right? Like you could do something online and so like this could be like a little more specific so that it sounds a little bit more realistic. But because like social interaction, they won't get as much as that. Like they won't like talk to each other.
Okay, social.
Students. Again, typically that's great. So that shows like you're not overgeneralizing. So that's good. Not overgeneralizing. Great. Keep doing this. This is another thing that'll help separate you from other students. There's the text alone. That's missing out on. Missing out on. Missing out on is also a little informal. Missing out on is a good phrase. You know, it's like a good phrasal verb. And it'd be great for speaking. But you want to try to avoid phrasal verbs and idioms as well. But definitely avoid phrasal verbs too for the writing. There are some that are okay, but in general, if you can think of something more academic, it's better to use something more academic.
Okay.
The opportunity. So
Got it.
yeah. Missing, or you can say that's being deprived.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot better.
Yeah, so this is where it's like this also hampers this can hamper their career development because they social circle, yeah, or network. So yeah, again, it's okay, but like, you know, in the last paragraph, you develop it well, but this one, there's really only this one sentence development. Because the second sentence is kind of just repeating the first sentence. And then the topic sentence is a little bit too long. You want to try to keep this down, keep this a little shorter, if you can. You know, maybe like under 20 words. Just like this short, simple, clear main idea. Because what you want to focus on in the paragraph is your development of the idea, your example, you know? And then you can maybe like, instead of writing a short one like this, you know, like for example, COVID would be a good time, right? Like during the COVID-19 pandemic, many students, you know, and again, you can make it like at Chinese universities, what you know about, you can use an example. You don't have to, but you can. So it's just something like that. You want like a more developed example, and then you could add this idea here is fine. This is kind of like add this idea on as a result of your example, right? Like it's like a further development, right? So always keep in your mind that some students, when they write a paragraph, they'll kind of like list ideas, and then you get a low score because you're not developing them. But you're always trying to like develop, and you're always thinking of like the further results, or what does this mean, or like more detail, just that same idea, developing it more deeply, like you're zooming in on a picture, just like more deeply every time, or zooming out on the picture. And yeah, so then you want something more like that. You know, COVID's always a good example because it's like really specific.
Yeah.
Right. So notice how it's like, you know, COVID-19, really specific, and then like Chinese universities and like Zoom, you know, and like Google. and Google, Google Meet, I guess, studying on that as well. So like just like really specific, so you're not afraid to mention like actual people, actual companies, actual products, all of that stuff. That'll also help to separate you, because like most students will write generally because it's easy and they'll just list ideas. But if you can write specifically and develop your ideas, then that will obviously separate you a lot from the candidates. So yeah, for this one, the scores are still good. Like your task achievement, the problem is like that third paragraph is very short. Other than the third paragraph, let's take a look at the just to make sure you get more accessible. Yeah, higher, greater, or improved. Despite interaction, interaction, maybe opportunities. Yeah. This is the may here, you could be a little bit stronger at the end, like it promises generous.
Okay.
But again, great conclusion. Yes, there's no problems there. Conclusion's great. You have the clear. So your task achievement, sometimes you want to include like a little final thought here, but that's okay. You summarize your ideas. So your task achievement, the main issue is just the third paragraph, where it's like not well developed. If the third paragraph was like a little bit longer, if you had that example, you could be looking at like around an 8 for task achievement. But because it's not, it's more like a 6 or a 7, because the third paragraph is really limited and it's developed. So that's going to bring it down a lot. With cohesion, coherence, the short paragraph can hurt that as well. But you like paraphrase really well. You have good substitution, good linking between sentences. You don't have like major mistakes. It's not hard to read. Yeah, it reads really easily. You could shorten your topic sentences a little bit to make them a little bit clearer. Sometimes this is called substitution, like when you start a new sentence, you kind of link it back to the old one. That can be a little bit better. So the linking between sentences, especially at the beginning of the next sentence. But overall, it's really strong. Again, maybe it's probably only a 7 because of the short paragraph, but like fix the paragraph and it could get up to an 8. The vocabulary, vocabulary is really good. There's a few times where it's a little bit informal, but there's no real mistakes, I don't think. Maybe the fast-paced life is a little bit funny. But besides that, this phrase here as opposed to the evangelist, so there's only like a couple little mistakes. So it's really accurate. So that one's probably getting close to an 8. Could drop to a 7 if it's like too informal. So like keep learning and using academic collocations. And then grammar is really strong. There's like a few more mistakes than with vocab, which is normal. There's always going to be a few more grammar mistakes. Actually, it's very accurate in terms of that. Really good complexity as well. Lots of really complex sentences. So again, it's kind of between a 7, maybe an 8, maybe a few too many mistakes for it to get up to an 8. So overall, probably going to be around like 7, maybe 7.5. But I think you can definitely get an 8 if you just kind of like fix the task achievement. And like the other scores are already kind of like right near to an 8, and just like try to reduce a few grammar mistakes, and it should be like good for an 8. Yeah, definitely get an 8.
Yeah.
On the real test, when you said you got like what you got, a 7, right?
Yeah.
So on the real test, there could have been some issues with like with your task 1 as well. Sometimes like students can't write like an overview for task 1. That can bring your score down a lot. Or it could have been sometimes maybe if you were like slightly off topic, or if you like didn't develop your ideas well, your ideas fully. Those are the things that could have brought your score down, because you should be able to get at least a 7.5, I think.
Okay.
Any questions about the first one?
No more questions. No.
Look at the second one. Yeah, so this is like a difficult topic, I think, more than the other one. The other one's like more specific. This is kind of like a very, very wide, general topic. In general, I would say you probably just want to write like a normal like 4-paragraph essay, because you'll come into the same problems we talked about before. Like, what's important is developing your ideas fully. So like having an extra paragraph means like the idea probably isn't as well developed. So it's better to just write, normal 4 paragraphs so that each idea is fully developed. Like you developed a lot with long example and everything. It's not wrong to write 5 paragraphs, but it generally is a better approach to do 4. Thanks to is a little informal, so you can say due to. Yeah. So now if you want to say more generally, you can say like the rule of law. And you could probably, like society functions. Based on or on the foundation of system, of rules, laws. Don't use contractions, it's too informal. It's true that the law sometimes inhibits commercial activities and social development, so some individual safety are only possible because of it. Yeah, use that about the law. Inhibits is a really good word. It's great. So this is good, this is clear, but you kind of set yourself like a little bit of a difficult task because you kind of included 4 main ideas to start, so like that makes it harder for you, right? Because you've got like commercial activity, you've got social development, you've got social stability, and you've got safety. So like now you have to like develop 4 ideas. But if you're going to develop those fully, then it'll be like 500 words, it'll be like too long. So it's better to just focus on 2 simple ideas, so you can say the one about like social development or commercial activity, whichever one. For example, yeah, like innovation, right? So this is the one you said. Yes, innovation. You could show innovation could be one idea against it, and then the other one could be like safety, which is an easy one. So safety is a good one because it's just like a simple, easy idea. Like you don't have to. It's nothing special. It's just normal. Your main ideas aren't important. So like the main ideas don't matter. They don't have to be good. They don't have to be great. You just want like normal main ideas, like safety. What matters is the development. The example. So then you want to have like a normal idea like safety, but have like a great example, have really strong support. That's what's important. So don't focus so much on the main ideas, and you don't want to have so many main ideas because then it can create problems for you in the essay because now it's like, oh, I have to develop all these ideas, and then it'll end up too long. So just kind of like one main idea for each side and develop it fully, as opposed to, it's okay to have 2. Some students are more comfortable writing 2 main ideas, but then you have to develop both fully. And you saw like, it's like in this paragraph, you can get a little bit long when you've got 2 main ideas. If you're trying to develop them both like totally fully. Yeah, in a world where it is not necessary, that's okay to use like the present simple. It's used like first conditional. Yeah, I think it's okay. Any could gain wealth. maybe like a little more general, pursue their interests at the expense of others. This is a little bit strong, the whole of society, yeah, descending into, yeah. Maybe just like weaken it a little bit, period. Yeah, no contraction, yeah. This is where you can kind of like between them, reference a little bit better and substitute a little bit better at the beginning of the next sentence, you know, like this result or this upheaval or this situation would result because. So this phrase, like this situation, this is called like referencing and substitution. So just like a little bit to link the sentences a little bit better. A lot of students will like, you know, rely too much on linking phrases, like however, therefore, as a result, like that can be a little mechanical. So using things like this is less mechanical.
Mm.
The bottom line is a little bit funny. We wouldn't really say, yeah, like serve as. The word you're looking for is like deterrence. Yeah, to activity. So this is like the principle of deterrence in the law, which is like the reason that we don't commit crimes is because we know we'll get punished if we do. So a person doesn't commit a murder because they know they'll go to jail or they'll be executed if they commit a murder. So like the reason to punish people isn't for that person, it's for other people, is to dissuade or deter or discourage other people from committing the same crimes. So that's like a key word. And the idea of deterrence, basically every topic about crime, the idea of deterrence is going to come up. It's like so that's like a good vocab word to know.
Okay.
Once restrictions and restraints, yeah, taken away is again a little informal because they have been removed, a bit more academic. Potential criminals, yeah, again, will not be deterred. This one you maybe don't need may, like posing a greater threat. Public security, public safety. And instead of like sometimes always using the relative clause, this can get like a little wordy sometimes. So the relative clause can get a little wordy. Sometimes you can just use the comma and then the ing, the gerund, and then add on the information, you know, posing with just with this. And it's like a little more concise and it flows a little better. Won't be so wordy.
Right.
So yeah, I think the development of this one reads a little bit more like it's just, you know, like just sentences added together. It doesn't flow as well. Thefts and robberies will be prevalent. Yeah, will become more prevalent. Again, weaken it. Society never does. Society always just is then likely decline. Which physical power is dominant. Yeah, is the decisive. Um, Yeah, so I think with that one, give you a sample answer for this one as well. So I think same thing, like the ideas in this one, they don't, it just feels like kind of like the sentences just kind of like add one onto the other, but it doesn't really like develop or link together that well compared to your other paragraphs in the last one. You can see like in this one, like the ideas kind of flow together well. When students have confusion, they can do this, and then these lessons are available. You know, moreover, they can do this. They can ask questions in this way. They can occasionally this will happen. Like it kind of flows a little bit better. As opposed to this one, it feels a little bit more like each idea is kind of just like tacked on. It doesn't really like flow or develop in the same way. Sometimes an example can help with that a little bit more. So if you start off by saying, you know, the topic sentence is fine, that's good. You know, the second sentence is fine, you kind of explain it. But then it's like with the third sentence is where you want to kind of like move on maybe to an example. You know, like you talk about deterrence, and then maybe if you use the hypothetical example. For instance, you know, if an individual considering committing a crime such as murder or robbery today must weigh possibility of being arrested, incarcerated. Result, if these deterrence moves, the odds of them committing drastically aggregate various individuals, society, basis, courage, potentially, force, ordinary. So like just like to link the ideas. Sometimes a hypothetical example can link the ideas together a little bit better and help you develop it. So if you don't have, for this topic especially, you probably can't use a real specific example. Because I mean, you could use like maybe in the past, like thousands of years ago, you know, when they're probably before in like human prehistory, you know, you could talk about a specific one, but it's a little bit hard to use a real specific example for this one. So you can just use a hypothetical example instead. Or if you do want to use a real specific, so you can use a hypothetical example. So you can be more specific, and that'll give you more structure. And it'll let your ideas, it'll help your task achievement and your cohesion coherence. Or you could also use like a counter example. You know, you could talk about people today and why they are, how laws work to prevent people from committing crimes and the punishments people receive. So you could use a counter example and be more specific too. Rule and discipline. Rules. Yeah, you want to try to keep a parallel structure here. So like keep them both in like the same. It can be a little bit tricky because we normally say like discipline, not disciplines, but we could say rule. So like maybe you can just say like discipline, or maybe just keep it rules. Yeah. I think for this topic, like rules and laws, you don't have to talk about them separately. You can kind of conclude those together as more or less the same thing. Some topics that you do have to talk about both because they're clearly different, but this one, rules and laws, are basically the same thing. You don't really have to talk about them in a different way. Okay. At work, and school are not disrespectful. Again, try to be like more specific. World function based on unspoken on, yeah, certain particular. Some is a little informal. You can usually use certain or particular, or you can just use like an adjective or like a variety of. Feelings when promising and helping those needs. Yeah, that's good. That's specific, so that's good. And don't use contractions, a little bit too informal.
Okay.
Overall functioning. Well, I use a common occurrence. Thing is a little bit too informal. Again, it's like okay, but it's like a little bit vague in general. If you could give an example here, if people entered into business contacts and they were unsure that they would be fulfilled by the other party, they'd be far less likely to, to conduct business at all. And this would kind of lead to like the economic models in countries starting to deteriorate and fall apart potentially. And then people would have to and that would cause all sorts of problems in society and just kind of like develop it more fully. It is a hard topic, right? Because it's like such a general topic, such a big general topic. But you can like start small and like build up now from there. Talk about what effects it should have on the economy, how this would change the way people do business, and the effects that might have on society in general and standards of living, and just kind of like build it out from there. To try to avoid we, you can say like I. You can say like I is fine, but not we. So avoid we or our. However, concede. You can say I. Certain rules. Yeah.
Groups.
Obstacles, or you can say restrict or inhibit, the word you used before. Innovation, economic development, or stifle is another good word. Not entitled to. Entitled means like you, and is a good thing. It's like you're allowed to do this. It's like something you want. Right? So it's more like they are. They must. Yeah. Must pay. Income tax, which in turn makes them less motivated. Yep. To but again, this one you need like longer example. I mean, you could give an example about like, for example, just to develop this one, like, like in countries with more socialist economic schemes, like such as many European nations, individuals, sure, majority of their earnings, states, contrast with robust, like capitalist economies. So you can just talk about like the idea of socialism, capitalism, like the United States, companies, companies. that sort of thing, something like that. Just again, give an example. It doesn't have to be. It could be about anything. It could, again, you could use like in China, something like that. If that's the example you know the best, don't worry if you have to write about China every time for the example. It's fine. And also, don't worry if it's like kind of true, but maybe kind of not true. You can't do research on the test, so don't worry about that. Okay. Slow down again. Cut out the phrasal verb, but you can say like slow or hinder. Hinder is a good word. Yeah, innovation. Majority. Yeah. And then include one final thought at the end. So like governments. Regulate. Laws. Reason. Just like one short final thought at the end. So this one, the scores might be a little bit lower. It's also not as long, so that means you haven't like developed the ideas as much. But again, the main issue is like this paragraph not really well developed. So what you should do is just like cut out this paragraph, just have one long paragraph here, one long paragraph here, and then like overall this is the side I agree with. So the test is probably still okay for a 7, but it could drop down to like a 6 because it's like not as well developed. You have a question?
No. Should I always use an example in an essay?
You don't always have to use an example. You can like develop your ideas just kind of logically using reason. But the problem with that sometimes is it might get a little repetitive, or you might not be able to do it. An example is the best way to write really specifically and support your idea with a lot of like really convincing detail. And it's what most students don't do. So like it also helps you to stand out from other candidates, because most candidates can't write like a really specific. It's difficult to do, even for me, writing examples for years, like making up an example is not an easy thing, right? Like it's really hard.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's why students don't like to do it. And they don't want to say something really specific. They want to write something that's kind of general. Because if you just write in a general way, it's easy and you're never wrong, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of writing general. Yeah. But if you write something really specific about a person, a country, or something like that, then you can be wrong, and it's really hard. So it's more difficult, but obviously like the rewards are better for it because you'll stand out, because most students can't do it. So I'd say, it's like probably like the most important thing to practice for your writing. The most important thing to practice is you don't need to practice writing a full essay every time, because like your intro is fine, like your conclusion, it's basically fine. You might want to work a little on topic sentences, but the way you can practice it is you don't always have to write a whole essay every time. You can like look at a topic. So you can use the link that I put it before. But yeah, look at a topic, write down the topic sentences for it. Don't write the whole essay, because it can be a little bit time consuming to write an essay the whole time. So just look at a topic, write the topic sentences, just 2 of them, make sure they're under top 20 words, and then check with the sample answer. And you might be able to like learn something from that. Maybe it'll be related to the ideas, like learn, but it might be some vocab, it might be some grammar, it might be some idea, learn something, and then repeat with another topic. And then when you start to feel more confident about topic sentences, because those aren't too hard, I don't think that'll take you too long to practice, then move on to examples. Right? Because that'll be more difficult. Do the same thing, like look at a topic, write the examples. Like you don't have to write any of the other parts. Like it should be like 2 to 4 sentences, maybe. Make them like long and detailed, not just like one sentence. And then check with the sample. Try to learn something from it. Like it might be vocab or grammar, or it might be an idea. Try to get something from it, and then like do another example. And kind of keep doing that. You're never going to feel 100% confident with examples. They'll always be hard to write, but it's about just like building your confidence, so that you feel like for most topics, usually I can normally write a really good example and develop it. There might be some topics where it's like really hard, I can't do anything. I kind of have to write in a more general way. That's okay, no problem. But like in general, you just want to build your confidence so you feel like you can do it with basically every topic.
So if I come across some topic, I'm not very familiar. Should I learn others, development, or should I copy some words or phrases?
I think most topics you'll be familiar with. It's never going to give you something so strange. Some topics will be easier to write about, like this one is a harder topic, right? This one is more difficult. And this one is like easier to write about. It's not really like the content of the topic. I think like the content, it's gonna be like environment, technology, education, science, government. Like the topics, I think you'll be fine with, but it's more like the actual question can be easy or hard, right? Like this is a very general, hard question, even though it's like on the topic of like law and crime, right? That's not a hard topic. You can write about that, but the actual question is hard. But there's nothing you can do about that other than practice with lots of different topics, and then over time you'll practice with easy ones and hard ones. Obviously the hard ones you'll probably do worse on those ones. The easy ones you'll do better, but you'll be raising your level with both of them, so that when you get to the real test, if you get an easy question, that's great, then you can do really well. But even if you get a hard one, you'll still do better. It's out of your hands, it's out of your control whether you get an easy or hard one. I think it's more about like the actual questions, like a tricky question. Is it like hard to answer? I think the topics you'll be fine. You shouldn't worry about that.
Okay. So for the second task, for the second task I wrote on, I really didn't have a clue what to write. So I wrote it shorter. So the actual essay was a bit shorter than I had in mind.
Yeah, but actually you were fine. Your ideas were fine. So maybe sometimes students have like this idea that they have to come up with like a really good idea or like but your ideas were totally fine, right? You wrote one side about like it's dangerous, basically safety. And then the other side is like, it could hurt economic activity over regulation. Easy,
So
right? A couple simple ideas like that. So I think your ideas are fine. It was more just like the development of them.
Okay. So I got your idea.
So like, don't stress so hard about like whether or not I have great ideas, or, you're just looking, you should judge your main ideas based on how easy are they to write about and how easy is it to think of an example. So you might have a main idea where it's like, maybe it's an environmental question and it's like, should we protect the environment or not? And you might say like, oh, okay, it's good to protect the environment for like the welfare of animals. That's a good reason. But then when you go to write the paragraph, maybe you're like, oh, actually, I can't really write an example about that. I can't think of an example. It's actually, even though it's a good reason, it's hard to write about. So you want to make sure that your main idea is something easy to write about. So you might change it to something like it will, like increase biodiversity. And then it's like, okay, that's better because I can think of an example for that. So like the main idea, it's not like, do I agree with this main idea? Is it a good main idea? That's not important. What's important is, can I like develop it easily and well? And sometimes you write down a main idea and then it's like you create a problem for yourself because okay, this is going to be really hard to write about. So then you should just like change the main idea. And you should judge your main ideas, always judge your main ideas based on how easy are they to write about and how easy are they to come up with an example. Not how good are they. That's what you want. That's what you're like. And then over time, you kind of just get into the habit of doing that so that you don't have to think about it as much. And you just like, no, okay, this main idea, I can write about. This main idea, no, I'm not going to, even though it's good, maybe it's like, no, I'm not writing a book. Like I don't have time to like do all this stuff. I just want the one that's easiest to write about. That's why like safety is a good one, because it's like safety is easy to write about, right? Or economic activity, that one's easy to write about as well. With this one as well, like, like flexibility. Perfect, right? Easy to write about it, no problem. Same thing here. This is like efficiency, right? Or like communicate interaction. Again, simple, easy to write about. This one is social interaction, reduce social, again, simple, easy to write about. But that's kind of why this topic is easier, because like the main ideas are like really simple and easy. Everything's easy to write about. And then this topic is like a little bit more, it's such like a broad, difficult one. So if you get, you'll be lucky if you get like this topic on the test, and then like a little bit unlucky to get this one. But if you practice enough, then it shouldn't be a huge issue either if you get a harder topic. Your other scores are kind of like the cohesion, coherence, the paragraphing hurts with this one a little bit as well. The vocab and grammar are both good. There's like a few more mistakes in this one, and like you're missing some keywords like deterrence, so like knowing that word would help a lot because that's really key to this topic. Like that's the whole purpose of why having laws or rules. So this one could come down a little bit, possible a 6.5, but probably still like a 7 overall. But it could drop to a 6.5, which is normal for like a really difficult topic, It could drop a little bit.
Got it.
Any other questions about this one or in general?
No, I think I learned a lot today.
No problem. So I'll send you that in the chat, that document.
Okay.
And if you have any other questions, I'll add you on WeChat. You can always send me a message on WeChat, okay?
Okay, thank you.
No problem. It's nice to meet you. Have a nice day.
Okay, bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Bye.